to epic stages where your journey begins. Our shelves are stacked high where the magic never ends. From dice that roll true to tomes ancient to rise, we got all the essentials for your game to arise. With adventure in mind, we craft every piece to make your campaigns flourish, your stories increase. For every TTRPG dream, our stock is refined. Come find your next quest, leave the mundane behind. Epic stages where you find satisfaction. We bring us blood, you bring the passion. We control the board, you control the action. Epic stages with legends like traction. Online stores a wonderland, easy to explore. With service that shines, whether in person or more. Need advice on your journey? We're here to assist. For novice and veteran, no wish will be missed. We've got what you need from the basic to the grand, to bring your world to life with a masterful hand. From maps that expand to characters that bind. Epic stages always with adventure in mind. Epic stages is where you find satisfaction. We bring the spark, you bring the passion. We control the board, you control the action. Epic stages, legends like traction. Elevate your game with custom pieces so fine, handcrafted with care, designed to make you shine. From miniature heroes to landscapes vast, we build every detail to make the magic last. When the final dice is rolled and the journey is done, we offer pieces that remind me of the battles you won. In every treasure we offer, memories are signed. Epic stages always with adventure in mind. Epic stages where you find satisfaction. We bring us blood, you bring the passion. We control the board, you control the action. Epic stages with legends like traction. Epic stages is where you find satisfaction. We bring us blood, you bring the passion. We control the board, you control the action. Epic stages with legends like traction.
Okie dokie artichoke, welcome to tonight's episode or session or whatever you want to call it for our handy dandy podcast tonight. We're hopping in, getting right to it. We're unfortunately missing a guest. Hopefully they'll join us shortly. But in the meantime and in between time, tonight's topic for episode 32 here is sorry, I can't help you, Dave. The upsides and downfalls of AI and what we do and all that fun stuff. So I would like to introduce the Mystic Geek. And I'll let you take it away from here. Who are you? What do you do? Where can people find you? All that fun stuff.
Sure. So let's start with where people can find me. Basically, look up the Mystic Geek, themysticgeek.com, the Mystic Geek across most of the social media channels because I was smart and grabbed that handle right away. Some of them have underscores and I'm like Instagram and Pinterest, unfortunately, but others I've been able to have the full thing without the little dividers. So my day job is I'm a business systems analyst, so very familiar with um, computing and all of the fun data nerdery that comes with that. And by evening and weekend, that is where the mystic side comes in. So I'm an experienced tarot reader, energy worker, witch 24/7, but that's kind of gets woven into everything. And I just like sharing my beliefs on things and being simultaneously reverent and cheeky on topics.
Reverent and cheeky means you'll fit right in with us, which is fantastic. I am going to apologize to people that are watching this. It looks like my connection's pretty trashed here currently, so it'll probably seem pretty choppy most of the night. I don't know why. Too many people watching the Mike Tyson fight or something. So we will do our best to push through the technical issues, but if they get too terrible, we'll probably end a little bit early. You guys all know Younger. I know he's got a new face and it isn't covered in a beard, so Younger, say hi, wave, look pretty, all that fun stuff. Perfect, thank you.
You won't recognize me. It's fine.
It's
just call me Dave.
I thought it was Greg.
I'm the AI.
Oh no.
You couldn't tell at all.
Anyway, well, speaking of, let's
with some of the AI videos out there, yeah.
I mean, so let's kind of jump into it on both. This is generally we're a very AI positive company, and that's what we kind of like to talk about. But tonight, we're going to focus more on the negatives, right? Especially as a business owner and the downfalls, right? Because there are wonderful uses. We all know them. They're all super cool things. But let's talk about those deep fakes, those things that are not so good, right? Or can be not so good, right? I think you bring up a good one to start. Is the fake overlays. You know, to be fair, I'm using a fake overlay for my background, right? That's all done by AI, which is nice. But it can be used for much more than that, for sure. So I guess silly question: do you have any experience with seeing those or using those or anything like that?
Seeing them, yes. There's quite a few Gordon Ramsay eating random things videos that are out there now. There's a lot of other videos that you're like, this is definitely AI, but it is mesmerizing. And those are like the far wacky fantasy ones that are out there. Um, I've also seen ones where I'm like, this looks so real. I will look for 2 or 3 other sources to verify that it's real. Like deep fakes of like Obama speeches and stuff like that. It's like, okay, did they really say it? It's actually funny on that same topic. So someone's taking all these nice little inspirational speeches that various entrepreneurs do at conferences,
Mhm.
and they've AI'd Donald Trump's voice into them.
Oh,
So having Donald Trump as a motivational speaker, I'm just like, you're kidding me. This hurts, but it's kind of like in the like the hurt, but it's the good hurt sort of deal. It's the all right, this hurts my brain, but it's so funny at the same time. So yeah, I've seen the full spectrum. A lot of it are funny. Also, the other one I can think of off the bat from TikTok. This was a meme, I would say about 6 months ago. Someone did a mashup of Harry Potter and bodybuilding.
yes, I've seen that one. Those ones are great.
Or and I can't like Dementor's cause or whatever the Dementor's caused him to lose his gains and stuff like that. So it's yeah, exactly. So it's all the hilarious memes on it. Yeah. So it's have this ways it's humorous that probably various licensed IP companies wouldn't do on their own, but it can also be an easy path to disinformation.
Yes, unfortunately, on all sides of the aisle.
Very true. Which I think is probably
Say
the
that.
biggest,
Go ahead.
negative element of it would be the disinformation aspect of it. People have a hard enough time knowing what's true or not, without anybody putting in fake information. Some people just mishear the original or misinterpret the original information, much less you have 30 different copies of a speech.
Mhm.
So, I mean, kind of on that note, though.
And on that note, you could have, like, let's say like most of us are English speakers, but some people don't know a foreign language, and they might want to know what somebody else says, and AI has the potential of being able to decipher that. But it's going to have any basic language nuances that are missed. And even with that, so the meaning can differentiate, just from the language transfer, but also it could just be completely misconstrued, like you said, within a disinformation standpoint as well.
Right. Well,
whether it be an attempted to be a benign thing or intended to be fake.
I mean, that's a great point. I mean, translating anything to a different language it's a whole different ballgame. I mean, especially when it's like a live speech or something like that, where it's not just written words and whatnot. Tonation is a powerful tool, right? So, on that note, with those things, in your business, is there any way that you could see yourself using it in a positive manner?
I have used it, though I did cancel the subscription. So I have ADHD.
Mhm.
So executive function and the whole urge to let's just through everything and not at once and not understand the concept of urgency. So there's a calendar program out there called Motion,
Mhm.
where you put together your tasks, you put together your subtasks, you say how much time each subtask is going to be, you block out here's your available time to do stuff, and it will give you the list of what you can do in those time frames so that if I get this done, I'm done. I'm on track for this deadline that may be a few weeks out, but this is all I need to do today. So it helps me mentally be able to handle that. Another AI-based tool that I use in my life that helps me out is Grammarly. Most people don't realize that spell checkers and grammar checkers are in a form of AI. So they are they have been taught on human language based on various grammar structures, and they are providing guidance to you on that. Now, I don't use the features that go and say, hey, let's rephrase this. I try to figure that out on my own, or I'll have a friend proofread it to say, hey, does this sound human enough? Or do I sound too much like a technical manual? Because I think that the friend is going to be more candid about that than a machine that's already trying to get me to have perfect grammar.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Grammarly, I used to use that all the time for stuff. It was on my keyboard on my phone for, I don't know, probably a year. But I think honestly, after they mainlined the AI to where it was writing stuff for me, I was like, I'll just type stuff out, rabble. Uh, we use ChatGPT enough for ideas. We don't need it messing up my text messages.
Yeah.
I can't spell to save my life. It has
mean,
no idea
Word-
what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
So
Like
Yeah,
Word
that's another
has,
tool that
the
I
spell
use
checking feature,
yeah.
and it's intuitive. Like you said, you click, like, it doesn't automatically correct it generally, but you click on it, and then it's like, okay, you could have meant one of these, 6 things. Choose it. Or find a synonym tool, etc.
cinnamon tool.
Yeah, and I also use ChatGPT as well. Be like, okay, here's 3 ideas that I have in a nutshell. This is my target audience. Which of these 3 is going to be a good fit and why? Because all I'm really looking for is someone to tell me, pick something. And usually ChatGPT won't even give you like the straight answer and a pick 3 for me. It'll go through the pros and cons, and I'll be like, okay, you can give me a good enough of an argument to go down. At least try this path versus being paralyzed with multiple options.
You know what? That's a great use for it for when you're having executive function issues. So I mean,
Mhm.
kind of on that note though, right? What are some of your downsides that you found with ChatGPT? Like again, it's something we use quite often, but there's obviously problems with it, right? Every time you interact with it
Mhm.
in some way, there's going to be an issue, right? What do you think you found with
Yep.
it, or something that you have a personal gripe?
Uh, I keep hearing about how the data in it was sourced. So it's one of those, all right, how much of it was scraping the internet without consideration of copyright versus how much of it was private information that was legitimately acquired to be used for training. So that's one of those things I always look at, and that's why I use it for like the high level ideation phase. I don't use it as a final product. On anything that I do, it's just like if I was chatting with a friend and got feedback, it's about as far as I would go with it. Another thing that's come up as a claim, and I'll admit I haven't done full research on it, um, is the power usage.
Mm.
If you're familiar with Bitcoin, if you're familiar with cryptocurrency and the processing power that's needed, that's a lot of energy, which then requires a lot of resources, whether natural resources like coal or whatnot, or wind to basically create that electricity to power the servers that then make those computations. And it's the question at that point of like, okay, is what I am using this tool for worth the ecological issues that it's causing?
An interesting question to bring up. Yeah, I remember reading something not that long ago that was at this point it takes up the same amount of energy as like the entire country of Switzerland to kind of keep it up and running and moving around. And by 2050 or something silly, it'll triple that or something silly, if not more.
As I said, I don't know the stats, but it does bring up questions on the use of it, especially for, I mean, making like the idea of creating like a completely AI generated cat video where they're doing something fun and silly. It's like, okay, that's a big dopamine boost. But then you turn around and you're like, okay, what was the ecological damage to that? What was the cost to that? And you're like, shoot, was that worth the dopamine hit? And it's having that greater awareness, which makes me more acknowledging, yeah, this can be used for fun, but you got to use it and be conscious about what the consequences are.
That's a great thing for anything you use, though,
That's an
right?
excellent point that I don't think I've heard anybody say.
Yeah, I mean it's okay to use things as long as you know the
Just
consequences of what you're doing.
Yeah.
pulling it back to TTRPGs, right? I think that's a good thing that they do tend to teach, right? Is the consequences to your actions, whether they're good or bad, right? Because consequences aren't always terrible. They're generally shown in a negative light, but there are good consequences for doing things.
Hmm.
But that's definitely something you tend to start looking at. Is it worth my time to go fight these goblins? Is it going to be worth burning up 3 of my health potions to go get a couple pieces of gold? Those kind of things. Those kind of questions get brought up and
Hmm.
statistically thought about. Younger, I'm going to jump to you for a second. Kind of going back on your question. I know it's a silly question because we have the same business, but in your business, is there any other AI that you think of using on the regular, or stuff that you specifically avoid?
Well, image generation. Uh, I use it because I am a terrible artist. I also don't know how to use Photoshop, so I revert to that of which I understand, which is conducting all of the things you should be doing on Photoshop probably 10 times faster instead on PowerPoint. Okay,
He is a
it's
wizard.
ridiculous,
It's hilarious.
but it works. I have done incredible things on PowerPoint that should not exist.
Can confirm.
But with images, I'll take 2 images, primary images, I'll say. It's like, I like elements of this one and I like elements of this one. I will go into PowerPoint, I will crop it essentially and structurally downgrade certain elements of it. So I'll make 30 copies of the same picture and then I'll edit this one so it removes this and that, da 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 da, until I create a layered image essentially. Kind of like, painting, where it's like you paint the first piece and then you paint over it and then you paint over it again. That, except in a digital format. And then I just like whack job puzzle piece it all together until I'm like, that looks good and natural and is nothing like the original. Like it has elements of it, but it is not the original. The colors are different, the color schemes are different, the angles might be different. There's additional content, this and that, and but it always ends up like when I'm working with the AI generation of it, like usually your image is not going to be the image that you have in your head of what you actually want, right? You're like, I want this, and very rarely is it going to give you that. So you have to tweak it, or create 30,000 images. But rather than creating 30,000 images, maybe we can create 20 images and 3 of them have elements of that I want to input, and I can just take my time fiddling around with it to make it artistically appealing enough and being able to represent the topic of which I need it to. And then I don't have to wait for 2 hours for the 300 images to appear either.
You know how many tokens or whatever you want to use would be spent to make 300 images at one shot? Ridiculous. Like 6 months worth of saving for that one. But okay, gotcha.
One of my favorite things is the AI hand thing, where it's like, oh yeah, you got the extra finger, yeah.
Nice.
And luckily there's also apparently an AI tool that removes AI extra fingers, and I was like, that's pretty cool, rather than me spending an hour trying to remove it.
That's too funny. Okay, so AI generation, right? Now, so the sounds like the downside that you're talking about here is the fact that it doesn't quite match what's in your mind's eye, essentially, right? And we've talked about the positive uses of it. For those of us that can't draw, it's a wonderful boon, because it allows us to do stuff and things that we probably couldn't before. It would take us 6 months to draw something as pretty as the things we make in 32 seconds. But what are some other, I don't know, negative consequences to using your image processing, whatever you want to call it, besides the resource stuff that we talked about earlier? Because that'll pretty much apply to all these, unfortunately.
Image processing.
It's not image creation.
The biggest issue. the biggest issue is, like I said, it doesn't produce exactly what you want it to. You have to work with what you get or not use it at all. And so it's just clicking the button until you get something that's kind of sort of ish what you want. And then it takes time. A lot of times the image generation, depending on what app you use, some of it's 32 seconds. I've gone on some things or like anything that's video related. Oh my God, I created a video one time just to try it. And it was like, you wait like 2 hours and then it produces, and it's like some terrible looking, hideous frog person running across the water. And it was like, oh, I'm not using that. Nope, that's not what I was looking for. That's like the lamest version of what I could have imagined. And a total waste of my time and resources. I'm going to replace that thought with image generation.
Gotta love when you find a new AI thing and it's just like, oh, this sounds great, and then you use it, it's like, this is terrible. Speaking of experience on my own,
I have a terrible thing for using Word.
Wow, Word is different. We'll get into that.
No. I mean, like using like ChatGPT stuff.
Oh, okay. What? Continue on your thought then.
So one of my big, I use it for brainstorming. Essentially, it's like, hey, I have an idea of what I want. I'll hand write down everything that I'm brainstormed, and then it's like, okay, well, I could be missing something, so give me something on that, and it's like, boom, okay, and then it usually has a bunch of things, and you're like, some of that's not at all any of the idea of what I'm imagining in my head, like completely different, right? Like, for instance, you think about ninjas, right? Okay, well, when you think about ninjas, there's a couple different ways you could go. You could talk about like historical ninjas, right? Like actual ones. Or you could talk about like anime. And when you get into anime, you got ninjas like Jujutsu Kaisen, where like they're summoning like shadow demons and stuff. Or like Naruto, and they're doing like Shuriken Jutsu and Shadow Clone. And it's like, well, first off, none of that is real.
I was gonna say,
and it mixes it together. It's like ninja.
If you're gonna talk about ninjas in anime, Naruto should have been the first thought. Jujutsu Kaisen's like spiritual priests. They're not ninjas. But
whatever.
Anyway, continue.
So you have to, or just the content that you do. Like, for instance, I looked up Temple of the Frog. It's an old original D&D, like 1970s adventure, right? Run by this alien guy. And there's very little information about it on the internet within a searchable format. Like, you go on Google and type up like Temple of the Frog, you're going to find very limited data about it. And if you do find it on the internet, it's instead going to be in a PDF format that you cannot read, like highlight, so it doesn't come up in ChatGPT. And if you type it in, it'll be like, hey, the Temple of the Frog talks about this and that, which is relevant, right? Some of the relevant data. But then it's also going to talk about like Frogger, like the video game.
Yes.
Or like Mario or whatever other game has like a Temple of the Frog in it, something stupid. And there's no differentiation. It's like, this is what the Temple of the Frog is. And so I knew a decent amount of it because I was looking through stuff and I was researching. And I was like, that does not sound right. So then I went back and I was like, where did this information come from? Highlight a section. Then I Googled that, found out it came from a completely separate topic. And I was like, wow, way to just insert yourself, ChatGPT. Because that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
That sounds about right.
So ChatGPT be throwing you under the bus too.
That they do say check all your work with it. You know what I mean? And it is something very apparent. Side note, kind of on that. Teachers have to deal with kids using it all the time, and apparently it's so egregious that they just like copy and paste. Like high schoolers and middle schoolers would do. That it's not worth checking stuff because it's all just AI generated in 5 minutes. Which is unfortunate and a downside because, school is important and you should learn things there. Writing and reading is important. But to kind of jump away from that, topic. Is there, back over to our Mystic Geek over here? Is there any other AI silliness that you indulge in or use or whatnot?
Uh, I'd say with Canva, mostly like the background eraser, kind of like the video thing that you have right now. Background eraser is great, especially if you want to put on a flat lay of a different background for an image. So things like that. I don't use a whole lot of generative AI in my work other than ChatGPT more for brainstorming. The rest is stuff that we've had since who knows how long, because we've had background erasers how long with like Adobe and whatnot.
Right,
So
right. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
And I
okay.
think part of it is also yeah.
You can
And
continue.
part of
I'll
it's
put my comment later.
distinguishing like when we talk about yeah, it's fine. When we talk about AI, I think like when people are up in arms, it's more the concept of generative AI versus taking what you already have, like an image, and softening it or lightening it or changing the color and hues on it. Because all of those also require some sort of form of artificial intelligence to make those modifications. I think the more hot button topic now is when you have a platform that extracts information or extracts data points, tries to compile them, and then tries to spit them out based on various prompts.
I would definitely agree to generative stuff being way more hot button. You know, I mean, it's definitely a communal divider 99% of the time.
Mhm.
But I mean, as
I actually have a thing to hit on that.
go ahead, swing your bat, see what happens.
So this was a little old news, right? Old news within the Dungeons and Dragons community. But you had Glory of Giants book come out, you know, and it has like some beautiful artwork and stuff. And it got past it was like, yeah, this is great, da 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 da. The artwork was created by an artist. They did do it. However, they then enhanced it. So they did the original art and then they just enhanced it. And then Wizards of the Coast found out after the fact that it had been published and printed that they had enhanced it. And there was a huge, big roar because it was like, you hate artists and da 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 da, you know, and there's a big whole deal. They were like, you gotta like start making these new, like, you need to make changes to the art and then we'll republish and da 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 and this and that. Which is good, you know, to be like, hey, we're promoting having people actually do things, you know, when you have a big enough corporation that can actually do it, right? That's fantastic. But I don't know if you've looked at artist pricing. Uh, for us small guys, we're more likely to be inclined to want to do that. But Wizards of the Coast, like even though they will not publish a book with AI generated art.
Yeah.
Again,
Did they say
Um,
how AI modified it? Whether it was like just a color change or if they smushed two photo images together that were both made by the initial artist?
so
Because
it
that
was
then goes back
so
to
you would have
nuance.
the baseline image, and then it would be like the giant has like tattoos or something, and then it would like have a like tattoos put on, or like, hey, add a particular distinctive layer of texture on clothing, right? So it didn't
Okay.
change like the color schemes and stuff necessarily. It just like added like small overlays over some of the current stuff, or like had a fake, you know, background setting of like wisping air or something silly, you know.
Yeah, and as someone who's an artist and who also is a writer, I'm looking at that going, okay, you just worked smarter, not harder to make a good piece of art. Especially if they were the ones who designed the textures or designed the tattoos. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But if it was that they were swiping art from other people and integrating it to their own, that's where I would see the line being drawn. So I'm not as familiar with this case, but that's kind of where my mind is going with those different possibilities of like, okay, is it right? Is it wrong? It depends, really.
it
And
depends.
you hit on it. It's hard when you're dealing with small publishing companies, especially for gamers, where you want to make sure that the people who are supporting you with their craft are adequately paid. But at the same time, publishing ain't cheap. Publishing ain't cheap, and consumers are price sensitive, where it's like if you were to go and give them the true cost of the gaming book, they'd freak out and they would go to piracy, which is not good as well. So
No,
that's where we start getting into the
I
challenges
have a
on how do we make sure everyone's taken care of.
if I gave you a list of like 150 images, right, that I needed you to paint or draw or like do art wise on the computer without AI assistance, like what would you be charging per image?
So I've pulled away from the art stuff because I delegate, but the people I delegate to, depending on the size, depending on the complexity, easily anywhere from $50 to $200. And then when you're saying like X amount, yeah, that adds up quickly.
Yeah. And so it's like, oh, I can take some of my time to edit stuff, use an AI tool, and then it's like, oh, my $10 subscription rather than
Yeah, I get
my
it.
several grand.
Yeah, and that's again, that comes into a hard conversation because I see that. And then there's the artists who are like, well, I could have done that work, or some might have even been like, I would have done that work for free, which you're like, okay, do you really want to call that bluff? But it then becomes them looking at this as capitalism and like this sense of lack leading to people going for the cheaper option, which I would also say in this case is probably the more practical option versus something that takes potential wealth and redistributes it to those based on labor. So in that type of situation, I'd say it's more an issue of be mad at capitalism, be mad at all these other structures in place versus being mad at the small creator who's trying to make their dream a reality, then they don't have the budget to lean on others for support.
A good way to look at
Exactly.
it.
You hit the nail right on the head.
Going back to the use of resources and consequences, right? That people be a resource. Is it worth their
Yeah.
time, their effort, all that fun stuff? Excuse me, sorry. So jumping into probably one more topic kind of on this bit. Excuse me, sorry. Apparently I got a frog too. Y'all infected me over the internet. Um, but on a positive note, right? Where do you guys feel like things like this will kind of land in the next 5 to 10 years? Where's your kind of like this is how it's going to get used, or at least what you think it'll apply coming forward, especially in the business areas. I'm going to start with you, Mister.
Hit on where it's already kind of starting.
No. Where do you think it will be 5 to 10 years from now?
I think it's going to be incomprehensible.
Incomprehensible.
In 10 years. I don't think we'll recognize
We're
it will be like the development of a radio to a telephone, right? It's like, oh, you used to have radio towers that you would go and, have hooked up to jarred batteries, and you would click a little thing to go send out wire messages. And then it's like, oh, now instead of towers, we're sending it to satellites, and it's going across the world without any wires. And it can come in a video conference. It can come in the form of a telecommunications. It can come over the form of written text. I think it's going to be like that far of a jump within the AI scope.
Really? Okay, interesting. What about you?
I'd up that. I'd go as far as like it would be like the Gutenberg press.
Really?
Like the technological and informational advancement that we had during that time. Because and for those who are not familiar, that the invention of that press was during the same time as the Protestant I forgot the word. When the Protestants Lutherans start to Lutheran, so they took Reformation. Yeah, shame on me as a theology minor. I forgot the word Reformation.
You're good.
But it was because of the printing press that Luther's writings got spread as much as they did. And it led to that theological cultural revolution that followed. And it allows, so I feel like on an informational level, granted there will be misinformation, I feel like it's going to have that ability to help people be able to grow and ideate. There's going to be dark sides to it. We can't even imagine what that's going to be like beyond the ecology part of hopefully someone fixes it, makes better processors. Whether or not that happens in 5 to 10 years is yet to be seen. But if we have aliens with cold fusion in the ocean, like people are talking about,
Right.
that
Ah,
I'm going to throw that out there. This has
thanks.
been a week. This has been a freaking week. I think part of it is going to be it's, but I also take a look at it as similar to other technological revolutions where people have been left behind. Like when we had the cars, the people who were in horse-drawn carriages, they're the ones who are left behind. When we went to like more sophisticated phones, the switchboard operators, they had to find new jobs. If we're going to be
as a
going in,
side note on switchboard operators, have you guys
yeah,
ever heard the story of why they got outdated?
no,
Okay, so real quick, there's a dude who ran a funeral parlor, right, and took care of dead bodies and whatnot, and he suddenly found that like no one was calling him, like, couldn't get any business whatsoever. We found out his competition in town, the person that worked at the switchboard was the wife of his competition. So every time they would try to call him, she would just route it to her husband's business instead. And so this
oh
man
my
invented the
gosh.
automated receiver to get rid of switchboard people, so that couldn't happen. Like he spent the rest of his time and fortune building that, so he didn't have to worry about his business being stolen again.
Well, that's also a sign of innovation leading to fixing the problems that exist within a system. So gives me hope when it comes to the issues of AI being resolved.
People do
But I
be
do
finding
see some
ways.
in more, yeah. But I also see like those who are in more grunt work style information-based jobs, seeing that those jobs are gone because companies like their profits and they are beholden to their shareholders. So I do see a change up in the economy when it comes to various IT or tech-based jobs, or even jobs in customer service, where instead of them being shipped elsewhere, they're shipped to the server. So it's going to then be the question of, well, where are we going to find work?
Well,
And this is where I consider us to be the big change point of, because I'm a personal believer in universal basic income, and I feel like somewhere along the lines these profits need to be going to sustaining us on a basic level versus going to like just being funneled upward and upwards towards the super rich. So as we're going through and we're shaving away all this labor, it's either we come up with a new thing that people can do and make money from, or we pull away and divorce the concept of you need to make money from here's what you need to survive. That is more of like, I would say, at least a 15 to 20-year plan. I don't think that 5 years or 10 years is going to be enough to take care of that.
we'll see. It could be an interesting decade, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, it's
But
already been so far, and we're only, what, 4 going on 5 years in?
yeah, right. The 20s, baby. Let's go. Hit those 30s soon.
I have an interesting thing to bring up about AI technologies.
Listening.
So we have a lot. There's a lot of tools out there that aren't AI related, that are digitalized, that exist in the world. You know, like a lot of programs and a lot of software that you can use for a particular function, right? But like, how many image editing softwares exist, right? How many word prompt like things exist? And then it's like, okay, well, maybe you have some variations of Excel, so on and so forth. But you could even get into like more specific ones, like, oh, like what is a particular program that I might be able to use that utilizes the capabilities of a particular satellite to look at the composition of a particular substance that's located on the Earth, that nobody's ever even heard about, right? And then you'll get AI technologies that are able to develop certain capabilities or produce something, and they'll keep on producing a new thing rather than using an old thing that already works better, right? And so then you're just going to be swamped with a bunch of tools, right, that have different ways of processing the same information. And so it will lead to a degradation of people actually being able to competently use the tools, because so many people are just printing them out so fast. Like, we're going to have 20 different variations of Flappy Birds, right? It's great for that quick dopamine thing, but if you ever have something that's more useful than that, then you're trying to have it complete a function, there's going to be a lot more basic level competition. It's going to be a lot of wasted time and resources, even if that's energy rather than actual time.
Interesting.
To produce things that already exist.
Right, or to be the copycat, right? So, all that being said, we're gonna wrap it up early a little bit tonight. Again, like we talked about, we got a fight to go watch. We got people feeling sick. Let's wrap this up right quick. So, politely, final thoughts and where we can find you. Mystic, we'll start with you.
All right, cool. So again, you can find me at themysticgeek.com. Most other social media platforms, it's either the Mystic Geek as one word or the_mystic_geek. If it's not someone who looks nerdy and unhinged, it's not me. So that's the easiest way to find it. Either that or my weird eyeball shaped company logo. I did not realize my friends who helped build it for me were fans of certain pseudo radio shows. I will just leave it at that. But it does look more geeky than that. So as for final thoughts, I think this is such a new topic. It's hard for us to decide what is right or what is wrong on it. And it's really important to take a more nuanced approach to it. I know for some people, nuance can be hard because you need to have that feeling of being right or wrong, but it's very important to exercise tolerance in other people's viewpoints and have an open mind. And at the same time, do all the fact checking you can. Because again, misinformation is out there, especially when you look at some of these Google summaries coming out for search topics. They're not quite accurate enough.
It's fair wholeheartedly, and I agree. So, totally missed this earlier. Dr. Sarah over here with a great comment. Stated, "Hey, I recently worked with an intern who had a marketing project, and they were not well versed in the watchouts of image generation features like fracken features or garbled text. When I see content that's clearly AI generated, and they didn't even bother to correct that wonky stuff, like the fingers, I assume, it really diminishes that organization in my eyes, and that's what the whole stolen source material consideration. That's a fair topic, and quite a big downfall is people's laziness. We talked about those students using their chat GPT to get through class. Like, who does that help, right? If they're gonna use it, might as well teach them how to use it the right way and get the lessons in while you can. But that's a topic for another time. Younger, do you have anything last minute thoughts to talk about?
Yeah, I kind of actually have a question for our lovely guest.
Uh-oh.
I believe at the beginning you said you dealt with business analytics, right?
Yep.
Okay, so you said you didn't deal. Have you ever thought about potentially using not necessarily AI generation tools, but AI tools to help organize information that's already pre-received? Like, oh, you received an email and it has X information, and it's going to extrapolate that data to fill my Excel spreadsheet. And after it fills my Excel spreadsheet, it will then be transferred over to this Word document, and it will file a prompt with that information.
So my side hustle, I use Zapier, which basically does what you were saying, where it's like if I get an email, it's looking for these things, blah 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 blah. So That is AI in a sense. So yeah, that's there. In my business systems analyst role, we use a lot of, since I do a lot of database stuff, we use what are basically stored procedures or buckets of code that we only have to change once, but we can use a gazillion times. So I use a lot more, I would consider it more automation versus
Okay.
artificial intelligence in that regard.
Okay, that makes sense.
I have topics, but well, I'll keep talking for too long if I go into my side of that. So I'm gonna hold my tongue for a later episode. Wahaha. We have an event tomorrow. We'll be up at PopCon at the local university. We'll be there from 11 to 6, causing havoc, playing games, selling dice, doing our thing. And then we'll be doing a big event on Black Friday, down at the big gun show that they do every year down here. So catch us there. Younger, we got any other major stuff besides Star Wars and Power Rangers next week?
Discount code.
Discount code. If you need 10% off the website, it is still Gobble 907. Gobble 907, just a single time. Not gobble gobble, because Younger says it's too much writing. But yeah, 10% off at the website. If you need stuff from that. Anything else? I'll take your silence as a no. Wahaha. Well, since
watch Mike Tyson.
Yeah, right. Real quick. All right. So before we get out of here, though, and then if you would stick around after the music for our after action review, that'd be appreciative. But speaking of music, go ahead and pick me a number between 1 and 10.
7.
Number 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think we did this one. No, we did the other one last week. All right, here we go. Fun music.
In the lands where honor reigns and shadows fall with heavy chains, under the sun of rising dawn, where fields of earth stand firm and strong, the farmer toils, the samurai swears to protect their land from all despairs. But shadows creep unseen by day, the dark within won't fade away. From the mountain's heart, the uneasy rise with whispers cold in silent skies. Earth is our shield, unbroken, unmoved, through ancient battles honor proved. But beneath the calm there's a roar, the coming storm of ancient war. 5 rings circle the world we defend, earth, water, fire, air they blend, into the void where spirits cry. In Rokugan we live and die. Clays will rise and shadows fall, but the rings unite and guide us all. Against the dark we stand as one, in the battle we become the sun. Water flows from stream to sea, bringing life to you and me. But in its depths the danger lies, the serpent waits beneath the tides. The merchant sails the Ronin roam, while storms of war strike close to home. The spirits stir uneasy cold, in every drop a story told. Water's the path, ever changing yet true, through chaos and calm it renews. But from the depths the dark emerges, on every tide the shadow surges. 5 rings circle the world we defend, earth, water, fire, air they blend, into the void where spirits cry. In Rokugan we live and die. Clays will rise and shadows fall, but the rings unite and guide us all. Against the dark we stand as one, in the battle we become the sun. Fire's flame, it warms and burns in every heart. The ember turns, the forge of war, the clash of steel, a deadly force we cannot heal. Air whispers with secrets veiled through every court, the truth the sail, but it's the void, the silent call, that binds us to the spirit's thrall. Stars, praying peace to end the scars. The clans they fight with all their might, but evil hides beyond their sight. Corruption seeps from twisted lands with demon claws and tainted hands. The Shadowlands rise to claim our kin, but the Five Rings guard what lies within. Five rings circle the world we defend, water, fire, air, they blend into the void where spirits cry. In Rokugan we live and die. Clans will rise and shadows fall, but the rings unite and guide us all. Against the dark we stand as one. In the battle we become the sun. So hear the call, people brave, for every soul that we must save. In Rokugan the rings remain, our strength, our bond despite the pain.